Hello all. So thank you for your support on the previous video. And in today's video, we'll talk about how to write email bodies in Business Central. So if you're new to this particular video, I would highly encourage you to go back to the YouTube channel, and we have a playlist called emails. There will be so many videos around it, and this is the last one that we cover, how to write simple email. The other thing that I want to notice at the beginning or announce at the beginning, that all the source code that we're talking about is available in this GitHub repo called community questions, and there is a folder called custom emails where there is some code available for any demo that you see on this particular playlist. So without wasting further time, let's open our source code and get into it. Okay. So on the last video, we talked about creating some simple emails, and let me zoom this in because sometimes I get a complaint that your videos are, the screen is pretty small. Alright. So we talked about how we create simple emails, and then we saw the old style of temp email items, sorry, and then we saw the style of email messages that we tried last time. This time we'll extend it to a scenario or to a code segment or to a record, and then try to do it how Microsoft is doing it. Your scenario can be a little bit different than what I have here, and that's okay. You can, you know, kind of utilize the same pattern that I'm showing here and write it on your examples. So let's copy all this to save some time, and let's create a scenario for sending purchase order emails. The similar style, we'll call it the procedure as send purchase order email. Okay, purchase order email, and then this becomes the purchase order email of type old style. And I should not be using the old style, to be very frank. And then send email new style, which changes this to this method here, and which changes this to here. And let's rename them to kind of make sense of it. So we'll call this one as send purchase order with temp email, and we'll call this as send purchase order with email message. And whichever you prefer, you can use either of those. Okay. Now, because this will be sending an email for a purchase order, so we surely need a record of purchase order here. So let's define that. We'll call that purchase header and set it for record purchase header. And the same will then be passed to these subsequent methods also. So just a little bit of cleanup activities that we are doing here. So let's do that. In this particular video, we'll try to understand how you can journalize the subject and the email body text, how you can make the email bodies more meaningful to your vendors in this case, or customers in this case, so that it doesn't look like, the basic one, like this is the test email, or fixed text like this. So we'll understand those nuances. So what I'm thinking, that also let's change this, rather than a confirmation message, let's do it as a email type question, which is of a label, and which have options of our favorite temp, email item. I keep on using the word temp, and that's why I guess I keep on repeating it. And the other one is email message. And as you would have seen in other areas of the Central, we need to have a selection so that user can select it, and then we need to give a default selection. So let's do a default selection also here. Okay. So now what you are going to do is we are going to set the default selection to, let's say, 1, and that will automatically pick the email item. And then here we'll let user select the selection based on a question, and not a question actually, it's a string menu, and then the menu will be displayed based on this question and the default selection that we have. And then here let's change this if condition to a case of selection of, and then to a end here after this. Okay, that sounds pretty more interesting at this point. So if the one, then the email item, and then if it is two, then it goes to the email message. So far so good, I guess. Okay, I need to open the colons here. So here we are good. Now we'll see a selection of what user would like to pick. And let's, as we're changing it, doing the housekeeping, let's do it email item. Okay. So now at this point, when this action is clicked somewhere on a page, it'll ask user which kind of email you want, and the options will be email item type and email message. And based on the selection, their respective functions will be called. Okay. So let's focus on the first one first, which is the email item style. And we have the reference of the record here. So what you are doing here is send to will remain same. And for subject, let's make it a little bit generic so that I can define what kind of subject I want. For that, what I'll do is I'll create a separate code unit because there are different body scenarios that you can create. It's easier to keep it separate. So let's create a code unit and call it as SDH email subject body. Okay. And let's finish this. Okay. So here, let's create a procedure to, not a local one for sure, which will return me my email subject, and we'll call it as generate email subject. Generate purchase order email subject, and you can, make it generic. And I have faith on you guys that you understand how to make things generic, right? And this should return something, and we'll understand it what to be returned based on the length of it. It is text 250, so this should always return a text of 250. Okay. Now this function generates an email subject. Now how it generates an email subject is, you can go a little bit, creative on it. I'm just trying to give you an example of how simple it will be if you start doing it. So for the email subject, I just do a purchase order dot document type, and I'm not going to set it for all, so you can do it based on your situations like this. But I'm going to return, if it is an order, then I'm going to return a generic, or not a generic, but a dynamic text, which is based on, let's say this is an order confirmation, and then with that I would like to return the purchase order number. And what you see is the co-pilot that's supporting me in this journey. If you are not aware about it, this is my, where is that, somewhere here, and it's helping me while I'm working on it. And there's a free trial for it for 60 days or so, or 30 days, where you can use it. And that's why you see these auto sentence completing on all these demos. So what I'll do is I'll call this method and return me the email subject. So instead of doing that here, what I'll do is I'll create a variable here for this code unit. Okay, this is a record. So email body and subject. Okay, and I'll call it as from code unit this. So I'll get my email subject in this scenario from email subject, and I'll need to pass the purchase header. What this will give me? A generic email subject based on whatever the situation is, right? And the same steps I can replace into the new one here. Okay, and I'll replace this as it is in the body section, header section, oh sorry, the subject line. So now my subject can be generalized, and I'm pretty sure that you're creative enough that you can create different case statements, you can have different exit values. Just remember that subject have a limit of a specific text character, which is 250. Either ways, even in this scenario, the subject is, oh, here the subject is more open. So if you don't want to limit it to your 250 character, which is a limitation seems here on the temp email item, you should be using this method of email message. Hope that makes sense. Let's move to the body, because that's where it gets interesting, because there are different styles that you can use while you are generating the email bodies of it. Now let's first try to create a very simple email body and see what basic you can do in an email body setup. So for that, let's do a procedure, and oh, it read my mind. It did not give me everything correct, but let's hope. Okay, generate purchase order email body, and I'll just get this. And the beauty is that in both these areas, if you look at it, the body is set to be unlimited. In the same way here, the body is set to be unlimited. So you can think about whatever possible situation that you can have, and you can return those values. So let's think about the situation that I would like to deal here with, and let's say I would like to deal with to send a basic message to the user, and I'll use the same statement as it is so that I save some time. And I'm only doing it for purchase order, but as I said, you're pretty creative enough that you can think about situation that's needed. And I'll write a plain text, which is something goes like this. Um, Dear, and whatever that vendor name is, so I can pick the field here, which is, let's say, buy from vendor name. Okay, and then I can then append, oh, it is suggesting something, let me just accept it and then we'll change it. Okay, so what I'm saying, dear, the vendor name, and then a comma, which makes sense. And then I want to say something like this, which is, please find attached order confirmation for purchase order number, which is good. And dot, why there is a dot, and we'll see that. Okay, so please find attach the confirmation number, and I forgot a plus sign here, and this is just a plain text of all the things that I'm writing here. So in this case, it'll say, please find attached the confirmation of order number, and because it's a purchase order, I would like to write here like this, or maybe on a separate line so that it's visible. We expect, or let me get some text from somewhere. Okay, from an internet screen, and let's paste it. We expect you to process it as soon as possible, right? And eventually at the end, I would like to give kind regards, and as well as I would like to send my contact info, which should not be this, which should come from my company information. So what I should be able to do here is, at this point, I should be able to add a variable of company info. Okay, record of company information. Okay, and then here I'll do a company info dot get. And at this point, I can start adding those values into it, like company info dot name, company info dot address, and so on and so forth, right? With that, what will happen is it'll look a pretty nice, well-written mail from my side, and that kind of looks good rather than sending a plain text. Right. But now let's think about it. What would be the problem? Let's start focusing on what would be the problem in that case, right? So there are some errors, so let me fix those. I don't need the postal code, and if I need, I can just replace it with the right values. And the country should be country region. And let me hit an enter after this point. We can see all that in one screen. Okay, and this should be my phone number, and this should be my email address of my company, from my company information. So at this point, the user should get an email like this based on the generate email body, purchase email body text. But remember one thing, that we are writing these, and the compiler will not treat them as individual lines. You need to accept that fact, because for compiler these are just plain simple lines which will then be attached to an email. And let's test this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this here on my set body text to come from email subject body dot email body. Okay. And the same I'm going to replace onto my new style to see how it looks like. So after this, I'm going to say that this will be replaced. And that's it. We have set the email subject and email body a little bit dynamic. And now we would like to see what happens when we publish this app and how it looks like. Because that'll tell us what kind of email we are sending and what other possibilities we'll see after this are available. Oh, but we forgot to add this on a page extension. So let me add a page extension here. Okay, page extension, and we'll call it as SDH purchase order, which will extend the purchase order. Okay, then somewhere on the purchase order, and I should have the template here, so I can just copy it from here as it is and save some time, and I'll paste it here. Okay, so I'll call it as purchase order email. Okay, and here I'll send the call the different method, which is send purchase order email with the record, and that kind of completes whatever I need to do to test this out. When user clicks on it, all that code will run which we have written, and we'll be able to see this, how this particular email body that we have created based on these methods which are listed somewhere here, how that email body look and how the email subject look like at that point. Now this will tell you what are the possibilities available as of today and what other things that we can do with the emails. And I know that there are certain areas where based on your business you might require to configure and design these emails. So with this examples, what I'm trying to explain you is what all possibilities that you have to kind of generate different kind of email bodies and all, and we'll come to other complex scenarios as we go forward into the series. But let's try to send out a purchase order email from here. So remember that the selection page that you have, that is showing here which option you would like to select. And if I say email and I hit OK, it'll run the code that we have and show me all in the plain text. And there are no spaces and all, which I can surely set and all. But what if I choose the second one? What happens then? Let's see. Maybe there is a change. I don't know. Let's test it out. Okay, so it doesn't look that good here, but it's also the same kind of text, which is plain and simple shorter. So, and let's read the email subject, which says order confirmation and the order number. And you can, based on your requirement, change those fields as you need. But this does not solve my purpose of what kind of emails I want. So I would like to be a little bit more creative and see what other possibilities are there to write different email bodies. So what we'll do is we'll copy this. Okay, and we will create a new method, and this time we'll call it email body, or we'll call it as HTML email body. With Business Central, using pretty simple changes in your email code, you can actually utilize the HTML tags that are available. And that's what we are going to do in this particular function. So we have the same code as we needed. And if I need to use the bold, if I want this part to be bold, I can surely use my HTML tag of bold, and I can close that loop here, or before this, bold. Then as we saw that there were no line breaks and we wanted them, so what I can do is I can add the breaks in line as needed with my HTML tag of BR. With that, there will be line break. So I'll just copy this because there were other areas where I needed line break. Like after this, I needed line break. And then once this is done, I would like to have 2 line breaks here. And this is 2 lines, obviously. So let me add this to make it 3 lines. And then after each address line, I would like to have a single line break, like company info. After that, I would like to have a line break. So let me just copy this as it is and replace these blank values with that break. And as much as you know HTML, you can start utilizing the power of HTML, utilizing these different methods that you have. If you want, let's say, the company name to be bold enough, as you're talking about, you can just again place these characters here also, like this, and then add this closing here for bold. Now the similar email that we had, and now I have 2 options of email body, and I would like to apply the same logic as we did here onto the email body selections also. So let me copy this as it is, or both the variables, then keep it simple, and put it here. Okay, and I'll say email body type, and the first body type is my basic email body. Basic email body, and the second one is HTML email body. Okay, so then let's copy the same code as it is, just to save some time. And in this case, while the body is being generated, I'll again put up a question to the user, which kind of email body type you want, and based on their selection, I'll either call this or I'll call the HTML one. Okay, so let's copy it here, and let's call the different method here, dot generate email body with HTML body. Okay, so now user can choose what kind of email he want, and then they can also choose what kind of email body they want. And let's apply the same methods here in our new, or the email messages style here. As in, you should not have much options. I'm just giving you so that it's easier to test in your scenarios that you have. So let me copy the whole section as it is and place it here. I should have done it differently, but that's okay. Okay, so here is the whole set of the first one. So let's copy this here and paste it here, and the same goes here. And in this one, I'll change it to generate email body with HTML. So now what will happen, either you use the new style or the old style, you will get both the options, which email body you want, and then based on your selection, the right email body will be picked at that point. So hope that's clear. Let's try to publish this and see how our HTML email body look like. because if it can, then there are a lot of possibilities based on how much HTML you need. And if it doesn't, we'll go back and see where we are making mistakes. And just a fact that these options were available the first time that I tried it is in 2009. So this is nothing new, but people didn't knew about it, the possibilities that they had. So even in NAV 2009 or any version higher than that, you will be able to utilize the similar code segment, surely in a different programming language or with the different syntax. But all these methods, all these capabilities that I'm showing about the email bodies were even available back then. So let's head into our purchase order area, pick up a order. Okay, and let's try to send out an email. Now we have four combinations, so we'll test out all of them. So the first one is purchase order email, and we'll say email item type, the default one, and the basic, not basic, we have tested out basic, so HTML email body. When I click on it, what I see here is a pretty nice formatted email body with all my bold statements which I have set in my code, my line breaks, again my bold statement. I forgot to add a line break here. We'll do that if needed a while. And let's try the new one and see what happens with that one. So when I choose here and I say email time message and I say HTML email body, you'll notice the text kind of, the HTML tags kind of get embedded into this. They did not get converted into the HTML formatting as we saw in the temp email item, because there is one single change that we have to do for that. So let's go back. Let me reduce this here. And first let me go back here and add that line break which I forgot somewhere. Okay, here. So let me just add this. Okay. Coming back to where is the issue with the email message. So we all, if you remember from the yesterday's discussion that we had, we were using the first overload which supported three parameters, to recipient, subject and body. But there were other overload to this method, and let's see what those were, because one of those will solve our problem. Email message dot create, and then when I do that, the first one is this, to recipient, subject and body, which we have already used. The second one says HTML formatted. So if you want to use HTML formatting, you will have to say it loud and clear in your create method that you will be using HTML formatted. Otherwise, the default value of HTML formatted is false. So what we have to do is in our create method here, we just have to append one more parameter, which is true. And the email message will code unit will respect your announcement and will make sure that it formats your text into HTML from a plain text while trying to show you that message, or while the code unit tries to generate your email message. So as we said yesterday, and I'll repeat it again, if you want to cover other overloads which may not come directly in our discussion, just let me know and we'll spend some time on it. Okay. So now we just have to test out the email message type scenario and to see is our HTML text formatted or not. So let's see where it goes. So let's head to the purchase orders, and from here we will choose the same purchase order, and this time when we create purchase order email, we'll say the new email message style in HTML email body, and you will notice that it also now respects the changes that you have done. So we have to specifically say in the new email style that do we want our email to be HTML formatted or not. Okay, but is that it, or are there other ways to make it more complex or make it more beautiful? Let's use that word. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll paste it here, and I'll say mm, detailed HTML email body. So this time we're trying to do a little bit more than what this is right now. And for that, what we'll do is we'll change the return type and we'll call it as what should we call it? Email body. We'll give it a name, email body, so that I don't have to define a variable separately. And then instead of this exit statement, what I'll do is I'll set email body with this until this point, and I'll just put a colon here. Okay, and then I'll let this part be added to the email body later on, which then gets added like this and closes like this. And because there are multiple statements that I'm executing inside a case statement, I will also have to add the begin and end here. Okay. So what I'm saying, that the first part that will be on my email will remain same. The bottom part will also remain same. But in combination to this, I would like a body section on my report or on my email body. So what we can do that for that is we can do a method here, and let's call it add email body lines, and we'll pass the header and the email body variable so that it can be utilized. So let's create a procedure for it, and yeah, that automatically passed as a var. What I would like to do here is to add a list of items that I have requested and certain fields from my purchase line, so that the person who is looking at the email understand what I'm looking for, and it kind of comes to his or her attention, oh, that this purchase order, the customer is looking for these items. So it makes his or her life easier. So what I'll do is we'll define a purchase line variable here, and we'll set it to purchase line. Okay. The first thing we need to identify are there lines or not. So we'll do our basic set ranges on purchase line. Okay, they should be in the right order, I prefer. And then if you want to limit to the type item, I know you guys can do that, right? Now if purchase line dot find set, and then begin, and okay, and let's do append a repeat until into it. And I know what you guys are thinking, oh, when you have the repeat until, why you're doing this. That makes sense. Let's understand this, why I'm doing it this way. Now the idea that I have right now is to make sure that the email also look nice. And what better if I can add a table X control in my email body, where a table which shows the item number and other fields that I want to show it to my uh, person who is receiving email, how nice would it look, right? So what we want to do is we want to add a table X. Now I'm not going into details of how you add a table X and all, but I'll just show you in a basic way. So the if the lines are found, then I would like to define the table header, and then for each line I would like to add a line into that table in an HTML table. So what I can do is I'm coming from here, there are already 3 line breaks, so I'm good with that. What I can start doing is with the email body, I can start adding stuff into it. And the first step that I should add is a table row, which is notified from a HTML perspective as tr. So the tr gives you a beginning of your table. So that's how HTML knows that you have started a table. And then to end the table row, you always end it with a closing tr. Now in this section, I would like to add all my captions of the fields that I would like to include in my table. So let's say the first one, which becomes my table header, because I'm going to add headers into my table X. And what my text becomes out of it is, let's say, item number, and then I'll close the table header, which I should not close this here, and I should call it something like this: table header and a closing of table header. Okay, so this tells, the HTML tag tells you to create a header in the row called item number, and then you can start adding it in the same way. So let's say the next one that I would like to call is as item description, if you want, or just a description. Okay, and the third one, let's say you want to be quantity. Okay, let's add one more. It's a purchase order, so quantity to receive. Okay, so that becomes my table header, and that kind of ends my loop of the columns that I want. But now what I want is again start a table row. Whenever a new item occurs, add is found in this purchase line, and then add the details of that. Okay, so to add a detail, let's copy this as it is, and I'll show you what the difference is. So for the details, how it changes is you add the detail parameter, which is this, and then you also end it with the detailed character, which is obviously this /td. This closes the table detail level structure that you want. Between this, you need to provide your field. What is your field? In this case, the purchase order line dot item, not item number, but number. That loop is closed. That loop is closed. So let's just copy this so that we can just replace fields into it. The second one that I want is the description. The second one that I want, the third one that I want is quantity, and the last one that I want is quantity to receive. Quantity to receive, where it's called, yes. Now these are numeric fields, so I'll surely have to format it out. Okay, so as I format it out, these texts which are available, the numbers that are available will automatically convert into text for visual perspective. Now anytime a new item will appear in the purchase line, this loop will return itself and will generate a table out of it. And at the end, once all the item had been received, what I can do is I can add the table closing, which I have uh, beginned somewhere. But where I started this table is not defined. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add it on the top. Before the table row, I'll add it here. And not a closing one, but surely a opening one. So this will start my table and that will end my table. So in this way, I'm closing the loop. But it'll be nice if I have borders in around my table. So what I can do is I can define a property, HTML property called border, and then I can define the width of it. So I'm saying it 1 right now. And you can choose, test it out, what scenarios work for you, and then decide what kind of borders you need. Once this is printed, it'll go back here and it'll print the email body, which is the footer part. So why don't we also split this and call another function called local procedure. It makes it simpler for me. Email header line. Okay, and then I'll pass the same thing here as it is, and let's do a begin end. Okay, and then let's add one more function so that I would like it to be that way, and then add this as add email footer lines. Okay, now in the header lines, what I would like to do is punch in this piece. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, and then add this function here so that wherever I have to use it, I don't have to change it 30 places. I just can do it at one place, right? This entity majorly refers to company info. So what I'll do is I'll remove this variable reference from here and I'll put it into my footer. Okay, I'll do the get here, and then I'll copy this part in here. So what I've done now, that I have three functions, one for header, one for body, and one for line. So anytime that I have to change it, I can just keep changing my functions, and wherever these functions are called, it kind of helps it. So the first one kind of initializes the email body, generates an header for you, gives a line break. Then for each item, the body generates a table and table headers and table details, and then that gets printed. And at the end, it generates this where I don't have a line break. So what I can do, if the body is generated, I can just add some space characters, not that many, maybe two of them will be sufficient. Okay. Now when you think about it, I can actually reuse the header and the footer function in this call also, in this one. And I can exit whatever comes out of my email body. So let's do that. Let's utilize the functions that we have built in, right? So let me copy paste it here, remove the line section, and define the email body as text here. Okay. And in this scenario, I don't need any of this. This all will get printed automatically. Hopefully my luck is okay and it works. So now I'm utilizing the same method that I've created rather than using it twice. So writing it twice and making the code hard to read. I'm just utilizing the same methods, and you should be doing it based on your scenarios. Okay. So now when we have added this new detailed HTML body, we should also call it somewhere. So here now I should have a one more option called detailed HTML email body. Okay. I'll not take much of your time, but I just wanted to cover this part, and I'll let it go after this. Sorry. And in the third scenario, which is our new case, what I'll do is I'll just copy everything like as it is, which is this. And what we'll do is we'll change this method, and now we'll call the dot generate detailed HTML body. The same will be called in the parent function or the temp email one. So I'll just copy this text here, paste it here. I should make it what we call that. I forgot the word. Global. Yeah. I should make this global so to keep it simple. Okay, but that's okay. It's just a demo. Okay, so we have everything and we have defined that. So now when I choose detail HTML, I should get an email body with the details of my items in that particular order, and that should be able to be presented. Okay, so let me publish this. And while this is happening, not on the same order, we have been testing on this order for a while. On another order, let's add some items so that we can see the table. If I can edit this. Okay. Oh, maybe because it is refreshing. So now I guess with this example that I'm going to show you, you'll be able to understand what are the possibilities with that also. So you can be more and easily flexible without going to the complex route. There are other complex ways which we'll cover to generate your email body. I personally don't prefer them, but we'll talk about it maybe other day. So what I'll do is I'll add one more item here so that we can test it out. And if needed, let's add one more item just to see how the tablets look like. Okay. Let's do a 4 and let's do a 3. Okay. Now let's try to go purchase order email. Let's choose the any one of those. It doesn't matter. And then the detail HTML body. So what will happen here is you get the basic formatting and you also get the details. Now you'll say, oh, Saurav, you said table. This does not look like table. I understand that it does not look like table, and I'll explain you, because this is not the limitation of what we call that, of the uh, this is not the limitation of what the code that we have written, but it is the limitation of the email editor. So I just send out that email. In a while I should get it on my personal email. Once we get it, we'll see what kind of email we receive, because that will tell you what kind of emails it's able to send out when they are actually sent out, rather than relying on the info that you were seeing on that editor. So whatever we have done should reflect in the HTML format in my email as that pops up, but it did not display it correctly, and sorry, it did not came that way. Okay, let me try with the old style, and I'll have to test it out if it doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure it should work in either of the case. Okay, so I'll have to change my email address here, and then out of it I'll just send this email. So in a while I should be seeing a new email, and that I'm expecting will have the ability to show what kind of emails are being generated when you utilize the advanced emailing capacity that are available. If that does not happen, oh, that did happen. So I just popped up a new message 0 minutes ago, which have the actual formatting that we were, at least I was expecting while I was writing that, right? So it have the basic HTML formatting as we had, and it also had the table X here with the headers that we wanted and also the details of the item. Okay, so before I let you go, let's summarize what we have learned. You can do a little bit more dynamic into your email subjects and email bodies. While talking about email bodies, you have an option to either go with the simple plain text, or you can choose HTML formatting. In the temp email style or email item style, you don't have to externally specify that you are going to use the HTML formatting, but in the email message style, you have to specifically announce that you'll be using a HTML formatted text based on a different implementation of the create that you're calling it, the overload method of the create. You can use most of the HTML tags. If you have some of the tags that you're not sure about, just add them into the comment. I'm happy to be testing out that for you and making a video about it. In the next video, we are going to talk about the thing that I didn't much like about, which is the word layout, because that's also an option to add as an email body, and that's, for me, that's the major reason why they exist as of today. But for me, they are pretty limited from that perspective. um, if you like the content, do hit the like button. If you have questions, please add those questions to the chat. This channel feeds on your questions. If you have more questions, you'll see more videos coming in. If there are less questions, you'll see less videos coming in. So please add your questions, comments as soon as possible, because as relevant and I'm into that mode of working on the series, it helps me to kind of, you know, fit that into the schedule rather than having a comment after 6 months, which I'll still try to address, but it makes sense if you do it now. If you liked it and you think it'll be helpful to your colleagues, do share this video. And if you haven't, please for me, just hit the subscribe button. That helps me to understand that at least whatever I'm doing is making sense to my fellow developers in this community. Have a great day, and I'll see you sooner than later. Thank you.